Hello, it's Burgess Taylor, and we're going to talk about why I create and why it's important to me and how changing some things has really helped improve my creative process in general. I create because, and it took me a while to really think about the why. I had to also think about why it's important in order to get my why I actually create. And I create because, one, it's therapeutic to me. It helps with my anxiety and depression. It helps with the frustration that comes sometimes from regular everyday life, from self-doubt, from the imposter syndrome, from all different kinds of things. It also gives me a purpose, helps me improve my life on a whole. It sets a foundation. And I'd say there are a variety of reasons that I create, but overall, I take pleasure from it. I enjoy creating. I enjoy the creative process. It makes me happy. It brings me joy. And it allows me to spread that happiness, to help inspire or motivate someone else to pick up a pen or a pencil and to write or to draw or to paint or to journal, maybe to do a DIY project, any number of things. But it helps me and it inspires and motivates me, and it also allows me to share. One of the big things, though, is that it adds to my life. It brings me joy, happiness, the actual act of creating. It's a way to record my experiences. The experience in and of itself, creating, but life. It allows me to record my life experiences. It's also a tangible way to make something from nothing. To take some raw materials to create a DIY project, to create a sketch, a watercolor painting, a drawing, a journal, a story, and writing a poem, a blanket from crocheting, a scarf, anything. Music, a song from playing the guitar, singing. I don't do that. My husband does, but it's positive reinforcement. That inspiring thing that you get from others, where you're inspired by others and that you also inspire others, that's definitely positive reinforcement. The more you create, the better you get. The more you do something, the better you get at it. So practice, practice, practice. And although my aim is no longer perfection, it's progress, I do notice that the more I do something, the better I get at it. And I think one of the big things is, as a storyteller at heart, whether it's writing or art, DIY projects, sharing my art with other people by creating things at our house that are DIY, or presents that are DIY, like scarves that you knit or crochet. I can't knit, but I can crochet a little. Painting a watercolor painting, or drawing something, or I have something I'm working on right now for my mom. I have done things for my daughter, for other people, for that. The act of creating is a pleasure, but when you put something out there that inspires somebody, that gives somebody else pleasure, you're doing something good for somebody, something that makes somebody else happy. It brings a little more joy to the world, and that's always a good thing. Now, I would love to be published, to have my book finished, to create, I don't know, a book about creativity as well, to, get to a point where I could actually sell my art maybe. But I'm nowhere near that point right now, and the idea is in the back of my head. But the main reason that I do what I do is because, when it brings me joy, brings other people joy sometimes when I share it, I hope. And I think the big thing, though, is that I have a need to do something, to be creative. I enjoy the creative process, and the creating, it brings me joy and happiness. It allows me to work through some of my anxiety, to work through some of the depression. It works as therapy for me. And I think one of the other big things for me is that with so much of our lives on, with aided by technology, doing something tangible is very relaxing and calming to me, whether I'm writing or I'm drawing or I'm watercoloring or I'm creating a DIY project. We spend so much of our lives using technology that the act of being creative physically through art, through words, DIY projects, it helps me. I don't know. It's like the difference between when I write by hand, part of my story that I'm writing on my book, and when I'm actually using a computer. I find myself much more creative by hand. But I mean, maybe it's the tangible thing. It's the connection between the feel of the pen on paper or the feel of the pencil on paper. And that's the same thing could probably be said for my art, except that I don't do digital art. I am not a digital planner or a digital journaler or a digital artist. I would one day like to be able to do some digital art, but I don't think I'll ever get away from using the tangible, I don't think I'll ever completely go away from doing things by hand. Although I do read some books on Kindle, I prefer a real book in my hand. When I listen to the sound of the pages turn, the feel of the pages in my hand, the smell of the book, I don't know, y'all. That's just something. It's something. Drawing, art, sketching, watercolor, writing, poetry, DIY projects, anything and everything that I could possibly do that is creative. It just brings joy to my life, and I love the fact that I can share some of that joy with other people. And I'd say probably the two or three of the biggest reasons are personal fulfillment, putting something out there for someone else to get enjoyment from, to maybe help inspire or motivate somebody else. That would be the second reason. The third reason would probably be positive reinforcement. The more people that enjoy what I do and the more people that say, hey, great job, or, it brings me pleasure, but it also keeps me motivated to keep at it, to keep practicing. And the more that I concentrate on my own art voice, the more in tune with my thing I am, and that brings me a great deal of pleasure knowing that I've created it and it's from my own self and it's not something, I've copied, trying to learn. I mean, we do sometimes copy to emulate so that we can learn, and I've gotten to where I'm doing more and more of my own and not copying to emulate, like, looking at an image where I Google something and I go, oh, okay, and I draw what I've looked up on Google. I'm doing more and more of looking at things in real life and doing them, and that's bringing me an immense amount of joy. The fact that I can create something I'm looking at and not necessarily where I looked up, how to draw something on Google. I'm actually drawing it as I'm looking at it. So I think that's what that would be. That would pretty much cover the basics of why I create and why it's important to me. Why do you create? Why is creating important to you? Whether you are writing a novel or poetry, or whether you are journaling or watercoloring or all of the above, anything that you are doing that's creative. Why do you create and why it's important to you? I'd like to know. Thanks for watching, y'all. I'll see you again soon. Bye, y'all.